record our ceremony, and I'm going to mute everyone, and then Peggy, I will let you unmute yourself. Okay. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the Garden Club of South Carolina and citizens of our beautiful state. Today, we gather to honor the brave men and women who serve our country, both past and present. It is my great privilege to lead an organization that recognizes that service in so many ways. Today, we want to share with you the Memorial Garden located in Columbia, South Carolina, a garden that will be celebrating its 75th anniversary this year, a garden dedicated to World War II veterans and now rededicated in honor of all who serve our great country. We will begin our program today with a special presentation from the Memorial Garden Trustee Chair, Peggy T. Little, followed by a special memorial at the close of today's event. Peggy?
Okay. Welcome everyone to the Memorial Garden. We want to thank, first of all of the trustees of the garden for all their fine work, and especially a couple of terms back, Betsy Steele, who was trustee chair, and Jane Suggs, who was trustee chair, and all the many volunteers that have helped to make this garden what it is today. It is to commemorate and honor all veterans from all wars, and is a cathedral type garden, because when you go into the garden, it is, I refer to it as she, because it's such a warming, calming effect to walk into the garden. And as you enter the gates, you feel this peace and solitude that just hits you as soon as you walk into the gates. And it's a somber reminder of all who have served, and we appreciate all of their service and all of their sacrifices. It started in 1945. Sarah Boylston deeded part of her garden, which is 1/4 of an acre, to the Garden Club of South Carolina, but with the stipulation that it be used to commemorate and memorialize veterans, because she realized the importance of it. And this is located on Arsenal Hill in the middle of Columbia, which is in the middle of our state, and all who enter the gates are welcome. It is open to the public from 9 until 5 daily, and that's the daily hours of the Caldwell Bolston and Lace House staff. And we do have to keep the front gates locked for security purposes, but toward the back of the garden, close to the fountain, there's a little single wrought iron gate that you will go through the Lace House and Caldwell Bolston House gardens and enter through that gate at any time. It is unlocked, but it has to be locked back up, when they're not in office hours. And I have been there before, and a mother who was homeschooling came in and just showed her children the beauty of the garden, and one of them laid down on the beautiful sod and just did like he was making an angel in the snow, because he said the sod was just so beautiful and soft. But it's a Luttrell Briggs design, and of course it was updated by Jimmy Cothran in like 2012. But if you look back at the pictures of the garden from years past, it's amazing what has been accomplished. Now, the big tree in the back, that is actually a ligustrum bush that has grown into tree form, and then the crepe myrtles on either side. The springtime is the best because of the azaleas in bloom, but any Jim Cawthron design is an evergreen garden, and he uses that same design, the cathedral design, in a lot of the gardens in Charleston. I have not been lucky enough to see a lot of those gardens in Charleston, but I hope to in the very near future. But it was deeded in 1945 to the Garden Club of South Carolina, April or June of 45. But it had the stipulation that it had to remain as a memorial garden, or it reverts back to the owner, which we certainly don't want that to happen. But it is through all of the work and dedication of the people who have been in the involved with the memorial garden. And we have recently started the brick paver program on the platform down below the beautiful marble fountain in memory of veterans. And I do want to talk about that. The bricks are 4 by 8, and they have the English edge on the end, which is again in keeping with the garden, because everything that's planted in the garden is period correct. And I know our family went in together on a memorial brick, and so it doesn't hurt quite as badly. The cost of the brick pavers are $500, and of course that includes the engraving. They are the ones that we sold before have already been engraved, and the ones that will be sold in the future, they will come in and actually engrave them on site, which, we've already got all that all worked out. But just please come and visit the garden, and it's just a sanctuary in and of itself. It has biodiversity, where the trees give off carbon, and they in turn give carbon back to the plants and the grass. And we have just all kinds of insects and nature, birds that are in the garden, and so lots of squirrels. And because the squirrels ate one of the heads off of the Four Seasons little statues. So we said we have lead poisoning poisoned squirrels running around the garden. But that will be another project that we will have to see, because everything requires maintenance, and things age out. We have to replace them. We recently lost a dogwood tree, which I've already gotten another one ordered to be planted. We're planning on doing it toward the middle of December, where it'll have a better chance of making it. I've just been told that since the dogwood is so finicky, that's the better time to plant. But we again want to thank all the veterans for their services, and welcome them into the garden. And please consider purchasing a brick so that the memorial garden can continue on, because it's through these funds that we have money to pay for the irrigation, maintenance. Yeah, lots of maintenance required. And then we also plan on doing uplighting near the fountain and along the walls for aesthetic purposes when people come by at night, and also for security purposes. So there's always plans to do other things. And we, in like 2018, you'll notice in the center of the garden, we had it built up just a tad in the center because we were having trouble with drainage. And so this has been working real well. And the city of Columbia kind of worked with us too on the water, because we just have the one little toilet in the gatehouse and one sink. So, I told them we certainly don't use much water, so just go easy on us. And they have. So we appreciate it. It's just all a group effort. And of course, weddings occur in the garden. Peggy and Henry McMaster's daughter, Mary Rogers, got married in the garden last year. It was a beautiful ceremony. And again, with Jim Cothran, he likes to pretty much do an evergreen design. And how smart is that? Because when we have events there in the garden, weddings or whatever, people can decorate in their own color and have a color scheme or theme. And that works out really well too.
Mm-hmm. Peggy, I'd like you to talk a little bit, or maybe I can for a moment, about the history of the garden. The original garden, which is still located on its original quarter-acre site, sits adjacent to the governor's mansion, but is not owned by the governor's mansion property. It is actually owned and bequeathed to the Garden Club of South Carolina on a restricted deed that enables us to be its steward and caretaker for as long as we are willing and able to maintain this historic event. And as you know, part of the Garden Club of South Carolina's main mission, as is the mission of national garden clubs, is historic preservation. So one of the key elements of this garden is that we honor Sarah Boylston, who bequeathed it to the Garden Club of South Carolina, by also honoring Luttrell Briggs' design. You had mentioned James Cothran, who was the landscape designer who had helped Garden Club of South Carolina not only document the garden, but also refurbish the garden. What you see on the screen in front of you, and I know it's blurry, this is the best rendition that we have of Luttrell Briggs' original design. As you can see, and this is probably easier to see in James Cothran's colored rendition, the garden itself sits on the corner of two streets in Columbia, and the governor's mansion is on down below and adjacent to. And that in itself is a gorgeous historically landscaped garden. But when you look at the garden landscape plan, as gardeners, as historic preservation stewards, you will notice that the plan has not deviated from the original Luttrell Briggs intention. It sits, you enter the garden from, is that Lincoln Street right
Yes,
here?
Lincoln Street.
Okay, and as you enter through these gorgeous wrought iron gates that you'll see in a video in a moment. And to each side of you, there are architectural details that secure the historic preservation of the garden itself. You will see that there is a marble signage right at the entrance, and then again on the inside to your left, where there is a little alcove of landscaping and architectural details. On the right is the original carriage house. Is that correct? This little gatehouse?
That it's always been a gatehouse, and that's part of Luttrell Briggs' design. He just like the carriage house was in between the garden and the Caldwell Bolston house.
Okay.
Where she housed her two white Arabian horses that they would the two horses would pull her carriage into downtown Columbia, and she loved the fact that she got all of the attention. And I understand that whoever became first lady, um, they advised her that the first lady would want to become friends with Sarah Boylston, or she would not be in the cut, So she was quite the colorful lady. And also, she died at age 93 or 94, and she had requested that her service be in the Memorial Garden, and it was on the platform where the marble fountain is, and she requested that her casket spray be made of foliage out of the garden, and her dogs were a part of the service, but she was taken out of the front, which is all that were her wishes. She had made her wishes known beforehand, but she was really from Pennsylvania, but she came to Columbia, part of the year. But when Columbia became too hot again, she went back to Pennsylvania.
Okay. Now, the original landscape designer, Luttrell Briggs, was also not from South Carolina. He was originally from New York. He moved to the Charleston area in 1929, where he fell in love with the temperate climate of our state and designed more than 40 gardens throughout Charleston and throughout South Carolina. Sarah Boylston hired him as the premier architect of the day to design this garden in, I believe, 1944. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what she wanted, as I understand from our previous conversations, was she wanted a cathedral-like setting to stand as a memorial to the World War II veterans in her own family,
yes,
as well as for those throughout South Carolina, correct?
That's correct. All who served. Yes.
And when you look in the garden on the plan, you will see that immediately when you enter past the gatehouse, there are two lovely little sitting areas that are alcoves, as you see on the screen, followed by a large stretch of lawn, which is now a little bit renovated for the drainage from our most recent renovation, but it still stands to give you that cathedral effect with evergreen trees and shrubs down both sides of the garden in a very, very formal setting. And at the very back, which is quintessentially Luttrell Briggs landscape design, is this platform, which is flanked by two pedestals on each side, and then living pedestals, which are the crepe myrtles on each side of the platform. On the platform itself is this gorgeous Venetian marble fountain. Now, can you tell us a little bit about this fountain?
Well, it is, Venetian marble, and the ladies of the Garden Club of South Carolina had to work hard to purchase this. And then a couple of years ago, one of the trustees was very kind and generous and purchased a screen to go on the fountain because of all the leaves that were falling, so it didn't clog the fountain. But we keep it at a low height during the week. And the sprinklers come on like usually Mondays and Thursdays. And they're automatic wireless sprinkler system now, thank goodness. And but whenever we have an event, of course, we put the fountain at its higher projection.
Right. And then behind the fountain is a statue of St. Francis, correct?
That's right, St. Francis. And we say St. Francis watches over the garden. and it needs a little bit of repair. We're just holding our breath on St. Francis, Assisi, I think is how you pronounce it. But a lot of people like the statue just left like it is, with the lichen and a little bit of
Yes.
moss and everything on there. And
Yeah.
I personally like it too.
And it
But
adds the historical perspective
yes,
of
it
the
does.
garden itself.
Yes, it does.
Now, was that statue original to the garden?
No, it was added at a later date.
Okay. Now, about 2/3 of the way through the garden lawn area, you will see that there is a gate to your left. That gate goes where?
It goes into the mansion gardens behind the Caldwell House, Caldwell Bolston House, and Lace House. And that's how the general public enters the Memorial Garden during the hours of 9 to 5 on the weekdays, unless it's a special state holiday when they aren't there.
Right.
You know, yes.
There is also on the opposite of that is that a bench for reflection?
Yes, it's a classic fern style bench that was dedicated to the garden, and it really adds, and it's on a brick platform, so it's stationary at all times, and everybody knows it's not to be bothered.
I see. And so as you'll see, the entire, before the wall was even established, which was again a later addition, the pigeon brick wall that goes all the way around the garden. When was that added?
That was like 05 or 07, somewhere around in there.
So that's probably the most recent large capital improvement other than the drainage.
Yes, it was. And it used to be just like a split wire fence. Just like, people would have to harness their animals in,
Right.
And Donald Dial, I understand, had lived in one of the houses there on the mansion grounds at one time in his life. So he has had a special interest in the garden, and he wanted to make sure that the wall looked nice. And he, did it in a way that it looks nice from the governor's mansion side and looks nice on our side. He went to a lot of trouble and made sure that this pierced wall matched the wall behind the fountain. So,
and as I understand it, all of the brick that was used, not only in the original garden, but on the platform and the new additions of bricks, as well as the pigeonhole brick wall, is all in the historic style of brick.
Yes, and in fact,
that preservation.
Yes, and in fact, I have a piece of the brick that was used during the original bricklaying. I just unearthed it by accident walking outside of the garden. And so I'm pleased to have just that little remnant of history of the clay bricks that were used back then.
Now, the latest renovation of our garden is in this area on your screen, which I'm circling, and that is below the stepped up dais platform where the events are held, where a ceremony would take place. At the base of those steps, we have created what we call an honor brick walk. Can you tell us a little bit about those honor bricks and what they're for?
Yes, they're purchased by anyone, garden club members or non-garden club members, to memorialize or honor their loved one who has served in any branch of service during any war. And like I said, the bricks are 4 by 8. They're red bricks with the English edge. And the whole area is 8 feet by 11 and a half
Mhm.
feet, and serves as a wonderful platform for, say, during a wedding for the bridal party to stand, because in years past, um, the wedding gowns would get dirty on the bottom and everything. So we were to entice people to use the garden, which we use that revenue to for the upkeep of the garden.
Mhm.
We knew we had to do something. So it's just always a work in progress.
I think it's a natural evolution of such a sacred space.
Yes,
You know, it began as a monument and a sacred reflection area for Mrs. Boylston. It was then given to us so that we can continue that sacred space with historic accuracy. And as it has evolved through many iterations, I'm very proud that we, as Garden Club of South Carolina members, are able to maintain it in such a way and use it in such a way that it will always remain a sacred space. Whether it's a veterans event, a wedding, a memorial, there are many, many ways that this particular space is used. As I understand, it is also used by the governor and Mrs. McMaster herself for a quiet getaway, for reflection on the important decisions that run our state.
absolutely, absolutely. And of course, that with their positions, they're constantly in the spotlight, um, and have no place for solitude. So we're happy that they decide to come into our garden from time to time.
Now, the governor's mansion, the weddings, the individuals, those are not the only people that are welcome to use the garden. The garden club members themselves
Yes.
have the opportunity to benefit from this space by either a private tour, a self tour, or a prearranged event through you. Is that correct? Can you
That's
speak a little bit
correct.
about that?
Yes, if you would like to bring your garden club or any group of ladies that you think might be, or anybody that might be interested, any group, I will be glad to meet you in the garden. And the parking would have to be along Lincoln Street or along the side of Calhoun Street. But
Mhm.
I will plan in advance to get you parking passes, so you don't get a parking ticket. Um, but so you don't have to worry about feeding the meter. But I know our garden club plans on having a meeting there before long and
Mhm.
bring just a little bag lunch. So we'll be socially distanced and have our own little lunch, carry in, and wear our mask, and try to be as safe as we can. But that's something you might want to think about too. Or if your garden club is celebrating a special anniversary, what better place to celebrate that anniversary than in the memorial garden?
Okay. And we also, as a state, have celebrated and memorialized and honored our veterans on several occasions in this very space. We were not able to do that today. We hope to be able to do that in the spring, God willing. And again, we will continue to strive to always honor our veterans in many ways, but also through ceremonies and memorials in this space.
Yes,
I want to
absolutely.
speak for just a moment because as gardeners, we're always interested in what are the vital plants that were used in these, what I call heritage historic gardens. And For many of us who have attended landscape design school and have been introduced to Luttrell Briggs, either there or in other events and occasions, you will notice that Luttrell's original intention was to only use an arsenal of about 30 heritage plants. And when I say heritage plants, what I mean is Luttrell Briggs came to us in the early part of the 20th century. And by the time that he arrived on the Charleston scene, there were already about 150 years worth of plants that had been imported that were quintessentially almost preordained to live and flourish here. Some of those plants were our native oak trees and our native hollies and viburnums, but many were introduced from abroad and from Asia. And that's why through the Historic Foundation, we continue to strive to only use the plants that were in that spectrum of historic heritage plants, whether they're native or imported, that Luttrell Briggs himself would have ordained to be in the space. Many of the original wall plantings that are on each side of the garden are viburnums, hollies, crepe myrtles, and dogwood. At the very entrance of the space and at the very back of the space, you have loquats and Elaeagnus. As Peggy mentioned earlier, at the very end of the cathedral, adjacent to and behind the fountain platform, are ligustrums that have actually become trees, and tea olives. And then down the sides in front of the boxwood and hollies and viburnum walled hedges, we have a second layer of azaleas and liriope and shorter boxwoods that flank each side and continue to provide that gorgeous evergreen layering that quintessentially creates the wall of a Luttrell Briggs cathedral style landscape. I'd like to open it up, if I may, to just speak and let other participants ask questions about the garden itself, and then we will conclude with our special video and our closing ceremony. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for just a moment and open it up. If anyone would like to ask questions about the garden, can you kindly unmute yourself and raise your hand so that I can acknowledge you?
Oh.
Okay, it looks like you've done such a great job, Peggy, that there are no questions from the audience. I'd like for people to know the exact address of the garden itself if they wanted to GPS it, because if you look at the garden, the address of the garden is not necessarily the GPS address.
Trish,
Yes.
you had two questions.
Oh, thank you. Hang on.
Marianne Kirby and Linda Beckham had questions.
Thank you. Marianne, would you like to start us off?
First, I would like to thank Peggy and you, Madam President, for the presentation. I'm so proud of this heritage. I knew James Cawthron personally, and we just loved him, and we loved the addition that he designed for this beautiful garden. One of my questions is, when you bring in a group of gardeners, your garden club, do you need to pay a fee?
No, you do not. Just let me know a little in advance if you can. so that I can plan to meet you there and get the passes and everything. We'll be glad to have you. Glad to have you. And we had a garden club that wanted to come like a couple of weeks ago, and they started out with like 10 people, and then it got down to like 3. So they came by the garden for just a little while and then went on to the Riverbanks Botanical Garden, and they just did a little self-guided tour. I just told them how to get in there, and and that's acceptable too. You might be with a few friends, just happen to be in Columbia and just on a whim want to go by the
Mhm.
Memorial Garden, and that is absolutely fine because it belongs to all of us and it belongs to the public. And just have to go through the gate in front of the Lace House and the Conwell Bolston House, and then just go back behind the gardens, and the gate is there. And like I said, it's open during 9 to 5.
And I
Well,
can
no.
testify, having visited the garden on many occasions, it is usually unoccupied and remains as a stalwart, sobering example for our veterans. So it's a great place to just sit and reflect in the middle of our hustling, bustling capital. The adjacent garden is also worthy of a tour. So you can really do a twofer.
Yes.
Because when you visit the Memorial Garden and then you turn left and enter through those gates, or if you come through those gates initially, the adjacent Governor's Mansion, Boylston Garden, and Lace House Garden are absolutely, absolutely stunning. And they
one
are
of the-
constantly under a state of evolution.
Yes. And the crepe myrtles are huge, and the trunks are just smooth as they can be. They're just works of art,
They are.
actually.
Yeah, and it adds to that cathedral effect
Yes.
when you're going up towards the focal point in the garden to look to your left and see that gorgeous alley of crepe myrtles that feels like another reverent space. We had another question.
Trish, I think you thought I had a correct question. I don't, but I was part of the group that visited a few weeks ago,
Oh,
and
good.
it was very nice.
Oh, good,
Thank
good,
you.
Linda. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And like I said, you made a day of it, didn't you, Linda? You went.
Oh, we had a really nice time. We did.
Yes.
We went to Riverbank Zoo, and then we went over, to the botanical gardens, and went over to the zoo as well. So we
And
had-
I was telling Linda Owl earlier that next time, maybe go by the State House, go
Yes.
in the gift shop, which I love, and do a tour of the State House too. So then
Mhm.
go downtown for lunch. It makes a wonderful day to do that.
And don't be surprised if you happen upon Peggy McMaster while you're there. She is often found visiting the garden throughout the day. Someone was asking about the best time of year to visit. Personally, I would say any time of year because of the evergreen nature of most of the landscape. However, there is nothing more stunning than when the crepe myrtle and the azaleas are in bloom. Would you not agree?
This is true. This is very true. And they've gotten really huge and just really make a show. And then after they bloom during 21, we will, cut them back and let them kind of refurbish.
Mhm.
But yes, the garden is just stunning. And then of course, in the mansion grounds, there's a beautiful fountain. And then you can walk in the mall of the Governor's Mansion complex and see that huge fountain, which that used to be a street
Wow.
when, years ago, and they made it into the mall area for the Governor's Mansion.
I want to take a moment to talk to our members and just share with you some of the wonderful ways that you are already supporting the Memorial Garden, and you may consider supporting the Memorial Garden. Yes, we obviously want you to visit the garden and visit and attend any events that you are able to attend in this glorious space. But you also already support the Memorial Garden through your direct or 5-star club donations. Part of the 5 stars is the Memorial Garden. And the reason that we have created this donation pathway is because we are bound and determined to make sure that it will never, never revert in ownership. We see this as Garden Club members and as citizens of our great nation as a monument to those who protect our freedom. So any way that we can directly donate or through our clubs collaboratively donate to the Memorial Garden directly or through 5-star honor donations, that's how we do it. You can also, oftentimes, when a member or a loved one has passed, we as a Garden Club organization will receive a memorial tribute to that person. And all of those memorials and honorariums are directed to the Memorial Garden. So I know that we just lost a very important person in Columbia, South Carolina, Alberta Thierry, and she actually bequeathed in her will that a large portion of her estate be bequeathed to the Memorial Garden and the Garden Club of South Carolina. The other way that you can support the Memorial Garden is through the brick project that Peggy had alluded to earlier. And I believe, if I can share the screen, or it's on our video, that we will actually have memorial brick applications to do an honor brick in honor of any veteran, past or present. Peggy is holding it up right now.
Yes.
If you go to our website, gardenclubofsouthcarolina.org, there is a tab at the very top called Donate. And on that button, it will take you to the Veterans Brick Project. So far, we have secured several dozen bricks, and that money goes into our investment reserve fund so that we will maintain the garden for many, many years to come.
Yes, and Trish, if I could add this, I have brochures that I'll be glad to send for all of your club members. Just let me know when you would need them. I know we have a couple of clubs that are going to use this as a program. And so I've already sent the brochures of how many they needed for their meeting. And of course, if you want to just have a little program yourself, or I can come to your program to talk about the Veterans Paver Project.
Also, on our website, there is a spectacular video that Peggy had narrated about a year ago and launched at our 2019 Expo. And you can honestly share that with anybody in your clubs or your community, particularly the veterans in your community, to help us expand our outreach, to let veterans know that not only do we do Blue Star and Gold Star markers, but we have a dedicated garden in their honor. And we would love for you to share that and the video with anyone that you feel deserves to hear that. Without further ado, if there are no more questions, I would like to begin the ceremonial part of our presentation. If you would kindly make sure that you are muted, I believe everyone is. And I will go ahead and share the screen. This is the, hope that I can get it up for you. Here we go. as a special dedication to the men and women who serve and will continue to serve for our freedom, Peggy would like to share with you this video. See if I can get it up. There we go.
You ask me why I love her? Give me time. I'll explain. You seen a Kansas sunset or an Arizona rain? Have you drifted on a bayou down Louisiana way? You watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay? Have you heard a Bob White calling in the Carolina pines? Or heard the bellow of a diesel at the Appalachia mines? Does the call of the Niagara thrill you when you hear waters roar? Look with awe and wonder at Massachusetts shore where men who braved a hard new world first stepped on Plymouth Rock. Do you think of them when you stroll along a New York City dock? Have you seen a snowflake drifting in the Rockies way up high? Have you seen the sun come blazing down from the bright Nevada sky? You hail to the Columbia as you rush into the sea. How you're headed, Gettysburg, our struggle to be free. Have you seen the mighty Tetons? Watched an eagle soar? Have you seen the Mississippi roll along Missouri's shore? Have you felt a chill at Michigan when winter's day her waters rage along the shore in thunderous display? Does the word aloha make you warm? You stare in disbelief when you see the surf come roaring in at Waimea Reef. From Alaska's cold to the Everglades, from the Rio Grande to Maine, my heart cries out. My pulse runs fast, the might of her domain. You ask me why I love her? I have a million reasons why. My beautiful America, beneath God's wide, wide sky.
Did you not see the video?
No, I got the sound, but no
Carolina is a
video.
Proud military state.
Uh-oh,
We
hang
have
on.
more than 50,000 active and reserve military
Yeah.
personnel.
Yeah, I just had the sound.
You just had the sound?
Yes,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
that's okay.
For some reason, it was sharing on my end. Hang on. We'll try it again. Okay. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
I can see the screen, but there's still no. And when I click on that,
Okay, I'll tell you what. Hang on.
Okay.
Let's try it the easy way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now can you see the bricks?
no.
No.
Now,
Now, okay. I apologize that we're going to have to do this again, but it's really worth the wait. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it full screen. Okay. And let me mute, and then I will play the video.
Oh.
You ask me why I love her? Give me time. I'll explain. You've seen a Kansas sunset or an Arizona rain? You drifted on a bayou down Louisiana way? You watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay? Have you heard a Bob White calling in the Carolina pines? Or heard the bellow of a diesel at the Appalachian mines? It's the call of the Niagara thrill you when you hear the waters roar? Look with awe and wonder at Massachusetts shore where men who braved a hard new world first stepped on limitless rock. You think of them when you stroll along a New York City dock? Have you seen a snowflake drifting in the Rockies way up high? Have you seen the sun come blazing down from a bright Nevada sky? You hail to the Columbia as you rush into the sea. How you're headed, Gettysburg. Free. Have you seen the mighty Tetons? You watched an eagle soar? Have you seen the Mississippi roll along Missouri's shore? Have you felt a chill at Michigan when on a winter's day her waters rage along the shore in thunderous display? Does the word aloha make you warm? You stare in disbelief when you see the surf come roaring in at Waimea Reef. From Alaska's cold to the Everglades, from the Rio Grande to Maine, my heart cries out, my pulse runs fast. The might of her domain. You ask me why I love her? I've a million reasons why. My beautiful America, beneath God's wide, wide sky.
South Carolina is a proud military state. We have more than 50,000 active and reserve military personnel, 8 major installations, and over 400,000 veterans.
Half of the soldiers entering the Army each year come through Fort Jackson. And as they say, victory starts here and victory lives here.
South Carolina's great military tradition, beginning in 1670, lives on through the bravery of our men and women in uniform and in the memory of those who gave their lives for the cause of freedom.
Today, we remember those who served through the Memorial Garden in Columbia, South Carolina, on the grounds of the governor's mansion.
This beautiful place is dedicated to all the men and women who ever wore the uniform, and Peggy and I are delighted to wish all of you a happy Veterans Day.
So as you see, we have a lot to be proud of. And as we spoke earlier about our description of the Memorial Garden, I do not believe we could have even possibly done it justice based on the beauty that you just saw. I want to also share with you a special moment about the Garden Club of South Carolina. Let me see if I can get back to our presentation. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I can assure you that when you visit the garden and see the video on our website tomorrow, it will not be skipping for you. It's my great privilege to speak to you in honor of our veterans today. So as we close our event, I want us to just take a moment to reflect on the service and the sacrifice that I know we all carry deep within our hearts. And the knowledge that Veterans Day should be dedicated to the awareness that patriotism is not an abstract concept. It lives and breathes and should live and breathe in the heart of all who serve and all of us who remember and benefit from that service. Consider the bravery of our forefathers who fought against tyrannical monarchy in the American Revolution, a sacrifice that laid the groundwork for our beautiful country, one nation under God. Consider the sacrifice of our ancestors who struggled against each other to reconcile our great divide as a people. I reflect on my own father and my uncles who fought for freedom on Normandy Beach, on Iwo Jima, Pearl Harbor, and all across occupied lands. I remember the letters from my cousins entrenched in Quan Gai, Saigon, Laos, and Cambodia, and their even greater tragedy when they returned home to an ungrateful country. I reflect on the fear and trepidation of my own mother's face when my brother's naval ship was christened, and the constant worry that ran through our family during the Gulf War that the possibility existed that he may not return home. I think of my own sister's heart breaking as so many of our hearts broke on 9/11, particularly knowing that my dear nephew had just enlisted a month before. But these are not the thoughts of one individual. These are our shared thoughts as citizens of this great country, for all of the family and loved ones who serve this great nation. Today, we remember them. Today, we honor them. And from this day forth, let us strive to be ever worthy of that service and sacrifice, the sacrifice and the freedom that our military will continue to secure for this great nation. Would you please join me in a moment of silence in honor of those brave men and women who have served and will continue to serve this great nation. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program for today. I ask if you would kindly thank a veteran today. Strive to do everything in your power to bring our country back together as we struggle. And always, always try to be of service to South Carolina and to your country. Thank you so much. Peggy, did you have any closing remarks?
No, I just want to thank everyone for attending our meeting. And I'm not sure if I told you the address is 1919 Lincoln Street at the corner of Calhoun and Lincoln Streets. And again, you're all welcome. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call or email me.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Be blessed, be united, and please remember that we are one nation under God.
Yes, we are.
God bless you all.
And thank you, Trish. And I wanted to also say thank you to Helen Goforth for all her wonderful record keeping.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.